Okay, so in this episode, we are going to connect from our Windows machine to a Raspberry Pi device. Isn't that exciting?
Yeah, actually, so we spend a lot of time installing the program in the Raspberry Pi, and now we are going to connect from our PC to the Raspberry Pi. And one of the most important thing and interesting to have that we are going to use the SSH connection.
SSH? That's
Yeah,
my favorite.
okay, that's fantastic. And we will understand how it works in general, but using SSH with the Raspberry Pi will have us the ability to remove even the screen that we are sharing right now and keep all the power and the resources of the Raspberry Pi for the execution itself.
So this is interesting. Yeah, so we're not using, although the Raspberry Pi device can basically function as a computer with a keyboard and a mouse and a monitor attached, if you do that, it takes up a lot of processing power. So instead, we're using this a little bit more like a microcontroller, a little bit more like a dedicated device.
Exactly. We are going to use all that power for a remote system. And so we are going to start, first of all, by having an introduction on the basic network communication. So at least we don't start just, oh, yeah, let's do an SSH, but getting into SSH and how the network works and how SSH works within the network.
Please explain from the beginning, from the basics. Please
Okay.
be gentle with me. SSH configuration steps.
So yeah, we will see how we will configure our our SSH configuration with the Raspberry Pi.
And we'll do that initially from a Windows machine, and then from a Mac machine, and then we will turn the Raspberry Pi back on itself.
Yeah, we will do communication between two Raspberry Pis just for the fun of doing that.
That does sound like fun.
Yeah.
It's like looking at yourself in the mirror.
Okay, so let's start and try to understand how a basic network works. Okay, so let's go. So usually in a house, we do have our modem connected to the internet.
That's a good start.
However, we always have a router.
What does that do?
The router allow you to allow all the devices to connect to the local network. It generates and organizes the local networks that connects to the internet.
Because you only have one connection to the internet and it needs to be shared among several devices.
That's right. That's right. So each time you connect your computer, your tablet, your smartphone to your home Wi-Fi, you are connecting to the router, not to the modem, which allow the communication with the modem itself and to the internet.
So the router has a very busy job.
Exactly. And one of the jobs that it has is to assign an IP address within the local network to those devices that were connected to that.
And this is how the router keeps track of those separate devices.
Exactly, and keep their communication organized so it can define which device is needing something and which the other device doesn't need it. Then comes our Raspberry Pi here.
A new device needs a new IP address.
Exactly, and as soon as we connect our Raspberry Pi to our local network or to the router, a new IP address is assigned for this Raspberry Pi. And
Is that difficult? Is it expensive to get a new IP address?
Actually, to a certain extent, it's free and simple and also dynamic because
Excellent.
the router will be doing it naturally by giving the IP address.
Awesome.
Yeah. So then we are able to do the SSH communication.
SSH, secure shell.
Yeah, so that's a secure way to a certain extent between devices. It can be done within a local network or also through the internet, but it's subject to much more complicated stuff. But so far, then when we have our Raspberry Pi connected to our local network, we will be able to connect and control the Raspberry Pi through whatever the devices that are able to make this communication.
We can remote control our Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, and this is what we will do just after this presentation. Okay? So let's jump now to the next step where we are going to do that.
Should I be reading these? Should I be going up there? Should I say, and here's the next step?
That's good. Then next, so okay, now we are going to make the SSH script.
SSH configuration steps. How is that?
Perfect. So let's start with the first step. The first step is we do have a router and our computer connected to the network. Then we need to ensure that our Raspberry Pi is connected to the same network.
Sure, it has to be connected through the same router.
So that's what we will do right now. So let's go to this Raspberry Pi and start looking for our network. So the network which this computer is connected is this network. And now I'm connecting my Raspberry Pi. So let me find, okay, and put in okay. So now the Raspberry Pi is starting to connect to my network. So it should start.
I think sometimes it takes a while.
Yeah, I think we are good. We are good. So now we are connected and even the IP address is shown, but I will show you how to find it in a more proper way. So that was the first step. We
Okay,
connected our Raspberry Pi.
we're moving.
Yeah. So next step will be to get the IP address and also enable SSH in the Raspberry Pi.
So the router is already given an IP address to our little chip, and now we want to find out what it is.
Exactly.
How can we do that?
So there is a very easy way. Actually, just if you just click here, you can see that you do have an IP address, which is the 192.168.1.155.
155.
Okay, but this is a kind of a way that is like directly from this, but you can go to the terminal and you put IP address like this, and you should find it somewhere here. There's a lot of writing. This is the internal IP address. Please do not look at it. And then if you focus quite well, you can see this is the INET IP address, which is the 192.168.1.155.
155.
Yes, and you have to write this command IP address.
Got it.
Okay, so we do have our IP address. Now we need to enable our SSH so we can connect to this Raspberry Pi. So by protection, this Raspberry Pi is blocking any SSH protocol or any computer trying to access to it. So what we need to do, if we go and write the command raspi, the hyphen, and then, yes, suddenly we lost the, what's going on? Let's try. We lost the zoom. We got the zoom. Oh no, we lost the zoom again. So what's happening? Okay.
Little focus issue.
Yeah, a little focus issue.
I think the camera is very tired after a large meal.
Yeah, that's what happened when you discuss a lot. So you need to write raspi config here. But when I enter here, I have this message that says here is this one script cannot be run. Try to run sudo raspi config. And why sudo? Sudo is giving you more authority on the code itself. So if I put sudo and then raspi config, so I get this display of the communication or kind of a setup or configuration for the Raspberry Pi.
Basic settings for the Raspberry Pi.
Exactly. And you need to go for the interface option.
Which is kind of like the network options.
Yeah, there's a lot of interfaces that we will see with time, but this time we need to focus on the SSH. So we click on SSH, and would you like
the SSH server to be enabled?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And put yes, and it has been enabled. So
excellent.
Now we have enabled our SSH. We can finish here within the config. So we are all good here, and we can close this one. I think as soon as I close it, the Zoom gets back well. Good. So now let's go back to our steps. So we got the IP address assigned to the Raspberry Pi.
And we enabled SSH.
Exactly. Then we need to open the software that we will use from our computer to connect to the Raspberry Pi. And as you remember, so let's go now. So let's have this and this. We are going to use PuTTY as a software to communicate with the SSH.
Okay.
Okay, so do we remember the IP address?
198.
It's
192.168.1.155.
Perfect. Okay, and we do have the SSH here. So this is the communication protocol, and click on open. So we get this one here. It waits a little bit to find the SSH
There we go.
communication.
It's out there. Come on. Come on. You can find it. He's out there someplace. He's waiting for you. Your true love.
And it doesn't find it.
What are we doing now?
Okay, so we have checked what did happen, and we found that it was a mistake when we put the IP. That was a very good learning. So when I inputted the IP, that was a mistake. So it was 192.168, then 1, and I forgot to add the dot after adding 155.
There we go.
Yep, and then let's put open. So we get this message, and this is a good sign that you accept to say that we are connecting to another computer. Would you like to connect to there? I say yes.
Yes.
And we get this terminal, and this is a very good news. We would like to connect as a wheel, and this is what we have. This is the user that we created when we installed when we set up our OS in the Raspberry Pi 4.
On the SD card.
Exactly. No, actually, in this one, when we installed, we had the full install on the screen itself.
Okay.
Okay. And then the password, 1234.
What? 1234?
Yeah, one of the safest password ever. Enter. And here we are. We do have access to our Raspberry Pi.
Look at that. Wii U at Raspberry Pi.
Yes.
And we're in.
If I put list the element that we do have. So if I go like this and
shows us
bigger,
what's in there.
You see we do have the document one and the desktop. So let's make something inside this Raspberry Pi and create a folder we called Windows SSH just to see that we accessed here.
All right.
To access the desktop area, so we go CD.
Change directory.
Exactly. No, CD is change directory to desktop, and we are inside the desktop. So if
we're in the desktop,
mkd make directory, and we call it win SSH means that
one.
Oh, it's one. That's a new.
Well, there's only one of them.
Yeah, win, and we put here the win directory. So now, and if we put ls,
let's do the list. Oh yeah,
and
it's there.
We can see this if we go back here.
Oh, look at that on the desktop. We can totally see that.
We do have a new directory, so we could create remotely the directory inside the Raspberry Pi from our Windows.
Excellent. We're remotely accessing and creating a new folder in this case.
Exactly. So what would be now the next step after we finish this?
Create a file inside the folder.
Now connecting through a MacBook.
Oh, cool. Okay, so now we're on the Macintosh OS. In the lower right part of the screen, you'll also see the desktop of the Raspberry Pi device. In the terminal in the Macintosh, we type in SSH to Wii U at the IP address 192.168.1.155. And then it asks us for the password 1234, everybody's favorite. Hey, look at that, we're in. We at Raspberry Pi, we type ls to list what's in there. It shows the desktop, the downloads. Okay, let's change directory to the desktop. And now list, and it shows that on the desktop there's Win directory. Let's make another directory called mac_dir and go. It appears on the desktop of the Raspberry Pi device.